My name is Helen, and at 68 years old, I never expected my life would take such a dramatic turn. For decades, I worked as a nurse, sacrificing everything for my daughter, Amanda. Our relationship used to be filled with love, but something changed. That Mother's Day lunch was supposed to be special. Instead, my daughter raised her glass and called me a failure in front of everyone, then slid nursing home papers across the table. What she never expected was my response. Before I tell you this story, where are you watching from today? If this is your first time here, please hit that subscribe button and join our community of real-life stories. Sometimes family hurts us the most, but what happens next might surprise you. I still remember the day my husband Tom died. Amanda was only 5 years old, her small hand clutching mine at the funeral, not fully understanding that Daddy would never come home again. The cancer took him quickly, leaving me a 30-year-old widow with a kindergartner and a mortgage I could barely afford. I had my nursing degree, but had only worked part-time while Amanda was small. The night after we buried Tom, I sat at our kitchen table with bills spread out before me, calculating how long our savings would last. The answer was terrifying: 3 months. That night, I made a promise to myself and to Amanda's sleeping form. I would do whatever it took to give her the life her father would have wanted for her. The next morning, I called the hospital and asked for full-time hours. Within a week, I was working 12-hour shifts, arranging for our elderly neighbor, Ms. Peterson, to watch Amanda when I couldn't be home. Those early years were a blur of exhaustion. I would come home from a night shift, get Amanda ready for school, sleep for 4 hours, then wake up to greet her when she got home. On weekends, I often picked up extra shifts to make ends meet. "Mommy, why do you have to work so much?" Amanda would ask, her little face scrunched up in disappointment when I missed another school play or parent-teacher conference. "Because I'm working hard to give you everything you need," I would explain, guilt gnawing at my heart. "One day you'll understand." As Amanda grew older, I became determined she would have opportunities I never had. When she showed academic promise in elementary school, I scraped together enough money to send her to Westridge Academy, a private school known for its excellent college preparation. This meant taking on even more hours at the hospital, sometimes working 60-hour weeks. The sacrifice seemed worth it when Amanda brought home straight A's. Her teachers praised her intelligence and ambition. I still have the memory of her 7th-grade science fair, where her project on heart rate variability won first place. I had swapped shifts with another nurse and shown up in my scrubs, exhausted but bursting with pride. "That's my daughter," I told everyone who would listen, pointing to Amanda as she explained her project to the judges. To pay for the expensive high school years, I sold my grandmother's antique jewelry collection piece by piece. These were family heirlooms meant to be passed down to Amanda someday, but her education seemed more important. I never told her about this sacrifice. I wanted her to focus on her studies without feeling burdened by our financial struggles. During those teenage years, I put aside my own dreams of becoming a nursing supervisor. The position would have meant more money, but also required additional certification and education I couldn't afford in both time and money. Instead, I remained a floor nurse, taking the shifts no one else wanted, working holidays and weekends for the extra pay. When Amanda was accepted to Princeton with a partial scholarship, I remortgaged our house to cover the remaining tuition. She was going to be the first in our family to attend an Ivy League school, and nothing would stand in her way. Not even my retirement savings, which dwindled to almost nothing during those 4 years. "Mom, I got in," she had screamed over the phone. "Princeton wants me." "I always knew you could do it, sweetheart," I replied, already mentally calculating how to make the finances work. "I'm so proud of you." During her college years, Amanda began to change. She came home less frequently, and when she did, she talked endlessly about her new friends, whose parents were doctors, politicians, and business executives. I noticed how she would glance around our modest 3-bedroom house with new eyes, as if seeing its limitations for the first time. "Jennifer's parents have a summer home in the Hamptons," she mentioned once during winter break her sophomore year. "They invited me to stay with them next summer." "That sounds wonderful," I said, ignoring the implicit comparison between her friend's wealthy parents and her single mother nurse. After graduating summa cum laude, Amanda went straight to law school at Yale again, with my financial support. I took out a personal loan, telling myself it would all be worth it when she graduated. By this point, I was in my mid-50s with no retirement savings and a second mortgage on my home. When Amanda passed the bar exam and landed a position at a prestigious law firm in Boston, I finally allowed myself to believe I had succeeded as a mother. My daughter would have the secure, prosperous life I had sacrificed so much to provide. The fact that I was now approaching retirement age with minimal savings seemed a small price to pay. It was during her first years as a lawyer that Amanda met Richard, the son of a banking executive. Their courtship was swift, and I found myself planning a wedding that quickly spiraled beyond my financial means. Amanda had specific ideas about the venue, the flowers, the food, all of which seemed to come from the pages of luxury magazines rather than our family's reality. "Mom, can't you just take out another loan?" she asked when I expressed concern about the costs. This is the most important day of my life. I did take out another loan, and I smiled through the entire lavish wedding, even as I was seated at a table far from the bridal party, next to distant relatives of Richard's family who barely acknowledged me. After the wedding, the distance between us grew more pronounced. Amanda and Richard bought a large house in an exclusive Boston suburb. When I visited for the first time, Amanda gave me a tour that felt more like a showcase than a daughter showing her mother her new home. "The architect designed it specifically for entertaining," she explained, leading me through rooms larger than my entire first floor. "Richard's firm has clients over at least once a month." I noticed she didn't mention my room or where I would stay when visiting. When I asked, she hesitated. "Well, we have the guest suite in the East Wing," she said as if it was an afterthought. "But you know, with our busy schedules, it might be easier if you stay at the hotel down the road when you visit." I felt the sting of those words, but nodded and smiled. "Of course, whatever works best for you two." As Amanda climbed the social ladder, I found myself increasingly out of place in her world. At dinner parties in their home, I noticed how she would steer conversations away from me when people asked what I did for a living. "Mom's retired now," she would say quickly before I could mention my 4 decades in nursing. "I retired 3 years ago, not by choice, but because my body simply couldn't handle the physical demands of nursing any longer. My knees and back, worn down by years of lifting patients and standing for 12-hour shifts, finally gave out." The retirement party at the hospital was small but heartfelt, with colleagues I'd worked alongside for decades, sharing stories and giving me a crystal plaque for my years of service. Amanda didn't attend. She had a critical case that couldn't wait. I found out later through social media that she'd been at a spa retreat with friends from her country club. Without my work, I struggled to find purpose. The house felt emptier than ever, and my fixed income meant I had to be careful with expenses. I started volunteering at a community clinic, mostly filing paperwork and greeting patients just to feel useful again. Meanwhile, Amanda's success continued to grow. She made partner at her firm, and Richard's investment business flourished. They took luxurious vacations photos, of which I saw only because a mutual friend would show me Amanda's social media posts. My daughter had stopped calling regularly, and my attempts to reach out were met with brief, distracted responses. "Sorry, Mom, crazy busy right now. I'll call you next week," became her standard reply to my voicemails. Next week rarely came. I told myself this was normal, that successful adult children get busy with their own lives. But deep down, I knew something more painful was happening. My daughter, the person for whom I had sacrificed everything, was ashamed of me. The first time I truly noticed the change in Amanda's attitude toward me was during a Thanksgiving dinner at their home 5 years ago. I had brought my signature apple pie made from my grandmother's recipe, the same pie Amanda had loved throughout her childhood. "Oh, Mom, you didn't need to bring anything," Amanda said, taking the pie with a tight smile. "Our caterer has prepared a full dessert spread." My pie never made it to the table. Later, I found it in the kitchen untouched while guests raved about the professional desserts presented on silver platters. That same evening, I overheard Amanda talking to one of her friends in the hallway. "Yes, that's my mother," she whispered. "Still insists on bringing homemade food like we're having some potluck." The friend laughed and Amanda joined in. I quietly stepped back, pretending I hadn't heard. Over the next few years, the incidents multiplied. Amanda began criticizing my appearance, suggesting I needed to update my wardrobe. "Mom, those shoes are so outdated," she would say, or "that hairstyle ages you. Why don't you try something more modern?" Each comment felt like a tiny paper cut, insignificant on its own, but painful in accumulation. When I visited their house, I noticed Amanda would subtly rearrange things after I touched them, as if my presence somehow contaminated her perfect decor. If I helped in the kitchen, she would rewash dishes I had already cleaned. "I have a specific way I like things done," she would explain when I questioned her. Richard was no better. His comments were always wrapped in a veneer of concern but carried an unmistakable condescension. "Helen, have you considered moving to a retirement community?" he asked during one visit. "Someone your age shouldn't be maintaining a house alone." I was only 65 at the time and perfectly capable of taking care of my home. "I'm quite happy where I am," I replied firmly. "My neighbors check on me and I have my garden." Richard exchanged a look with Amanda that clearly communicated they thought I was being stubborn and unreasonable. The canceled visits became more frequent. Amanda would promise to come for a weekend, then call at the last minute with an excuse: a work emergency, a sick child, a sudden invitation they couldn't refuse. I would spend days preparing for their visits, cleaning the house from top to bottom, cooking Amanda's favorite foods, only to receive a text message cancellation hours before their expected arrival. "Sorry, Mom, something came up. We'll reschedule soon." Soon rarely came. When it did, the visits were brief and tense. Amanda would spend most of the time on her phone, barely engaging in conversation. Richard would make comments about how quaint my neighborhood was, as if I lived in some backwater, instead of a perfectly respectable suburban area. Their children, my grandchildren, seemed like strangers. At 10 and 8, Madison and Tyler had been taught to call me Grandmother Helen instead of the grandma I had hoped for. They were polite but distant, clearly uncomfortable in my home without their tablets and electronic devices. "There's nothing to do here," Madison complained once, looking around my living room with undisguised boredom. I suggested board games, baking cookies, or exploring the small wooded area behind my house, activities that had delighted Amanda at their age. They looked at me as if I had suggested they churn butter or weave cloth. The social media posts were perhaps the most painful. Through mutual friends, I would discover gatherings I hadn't been invited to: Amanda's birthday celebrations, family beach trips, holiday parties. In one particularly hurtful instance, I saw photos of a large Thanksgiving dinner at their home just days after Amanda had told me they were keeping it small this year and couldn't include me. The table was filled with friends and Richard's family, but there was no place for me. Last Christmas was especially difficult. After much insistence on my part, I was included in their holiday celebration. When I arrived carrying carefully wrapped gifts for everyone, I discovered I had been seated at a small table in the corner with Richard's elderly aunt, who was hard of hearing and barely conversational. The main table, beautifully decorated with candles and fine china, seated Amanda, Richard, their children, Richard's parents and siblings, and most shockingly, their children's nanny. My own daughter had relegated me to the auxiliary table, while the woman who helped raise my grandchildren took my rightful place in the family circle. I said nothing, swallowing my hurt with each bite of the gourmet meal. When it came time to open gifts, I watched as the expensive presents I had stretched my budget to afford were barely acknowledged, while Richard's parents' extravagant offerings were met with exclamations of delight. My 68th birthday 3 months ago marked a new low in our relationship. Amanda had reluctantly agreed to a small dinner at a local restaurant. She arrived 30 minutes late, immediately apologizing that they couldn't stay long. "We have tickets to the symphony tonight," she explained, checking her watch repeatedly throughout our rushed meal. When the server brought a small cake I had pre-ordered myself, Amanda seemed embarrassed by the singing and quickly ushered everyone out as soon as the last bite was eaten. Later that evening, I saw on her friend's social media that there was no symphony. Instead, she and Richard had attended a spa evening at their country club, posting photos of themselves in robes with champagne glasses merely an hour after leaving my birthday dinner. That night, alone in my house with half a birthday cake, I cried for the first time in years. Not just for myself, but for the daughter I had raised and seemed to have lost. The next morning, I made an appointment with my doctor to check if there were signs of cognitive decline or health issues that might justify Amanda's increasing attempts to control my life. The tests came back clear. I was, as my doctor put it, remarkably healthy for someone your age. "You'll outlive us all, Helen," he joked, reviewing my results. "Keep doing whatever you're doing." I didn't tell him that what I was doing was slowly having my heart broken by the person I loved most in the world. It was against this backdrop that Amanda's invitation to Mother's Day lunch arrived. The text message came unexpectedly one evening. "Mom, we want to take you somewhere special for Mother's Day. Richard made reservations at La Maison, dress nicely." La Maison was the most expensive restaurant in the area, a place I had never been. For a moment, hope fluttered in my chest. Perhaps this was Amanda's way of making amends, of showing she still cared. I spent money I couldn't really spare on a new dress, a soft blue one that the salesperson assured me brought out my eyes. I had my hair done professionally for the first time in years and even splurged on a manicure. Looking in the mirror before leaving for the restaurant, I barely recognized the elegantly dressed woman staring back at me. Please let this be a new beginning, I whispered to my reflection. I should have known better. I arrived at La Maison 15 minutes early, nervous as a teenager on a first date. The maitre d' raised an eyebrow at my name, then led me to a large table in the center of the restaurant, already occupied by several people I didn't recognize. Mrs. Williams, your party is already seated, he announced, pulling out a chair for me. Amanda rose to greet me with an air kiss near my cheek, careful not to actually make contact. Mom, you're early, she said, as if this were a fault. I didn't want to keep everyone waiting, I replied, looking around at the unfamiliar faces. Let me introduce you, Amanda said. These are Richard's parents, William and Barbara. You met at the wedding, remember? I did remember the cold, assessing looks they had given me 8 years ago, as if evaluating whether I was worthy of being connected to their family. Their expressions hadn't warmed in the intervening years. And these are our friends from the country club, James and Patricia Collins and their daughter Stephanie. The introductions continued a blur of names and polite smiles that didn't reach their eyes. I counted 12 people in total, none of whom seemed particularly pleased to see me, despite this ostensibly being a lunch in my honor. I was seated at the middle of the table with Amanda to my right and Richard's mother to my left. Barbara immediately turned away to continue her conversation with James, effectively cutting me out before I could even settle in my chair. You look nice, Mom, Amanda said, giving my new dress a quick glance. Blue is a good color on you. Before I could thank her, she was checking her phone, frowning slightly at whatever she saw there. The waiter appeared to take drink orders. When it came to my turn, I asked for iced tea. Nothing stronger, Richard called from across the table. It's a celebration after all. I'm fine with tea, I said firmly. I wanted to keep a clear head, already sensing something was off about this gathering. As appetizers were served, I attempted conversation with those nearest to me, but found myself repeatedly interrupted or given such brief responses that the exchanges quickly died. Meanwhile, everyone else seemed engaged in lively discussions about country club politics, recent vacations to Europe, and private school admissions for their children. I noticed Amanda and Richard exchanging glances throughout the meal, sometimes with subtle nods or raised eyebrows, as if communicating in a private language. Several times, Amanda checked her watch, then looked significantly at her husband. During a brief lull, I excused myself to use the restroom. As I walked through the dining room, I felt strangely as if I were being watched. In the elegant marble bathroom, I was washing my hands when I heard the door open behind me. Through the mirror, I saw Amanda enter, followed by Patricia. They didn't notice me immediately, partially hidden by a decorative pillar. Is everything set up? Patricia asked in a low voice. Yes, Richard has the envelope ready, Amanda replied. We'll do it right after the main course when they bring the champagne. She has no idea. None. She thinks this is just a Mother's Day lunch. Amanda laughed softly. Wait until you hear the toast. They moved toward the stalls, still talking, but I had heard enough. I quietly slipped out, my heart pounding. Whatever was planned, it wasn't a celebration of motherhood. Back at the table, I found the main courses had been served. My salmon looked beautiful, but I had completely lost my appetite. I pushed the food around my plate, trying to make sense of what I had overheard. Mom, you're not eating, Amanda observed. Don't you like it? It's delicious, I lied. I'm just taking my time. Richard was watching me with an odd expression, something between anticipation and discomfort. When our eyes met, he quickly looked away, signaling to a waiter. Let's have the champagne now, he said. I think we're ready for our toast. The waiter nodded, and moments later, servers appeared with flutes of champagne for everyone. I noticed my glass was filled slightly higher than the others. Mom, we want you right here, Amanda said, guiding me to stand at what she called the place of honor at the center of the table. She remained standing beside me, raising her glass. The table quieted, all eyes turning to us. I felt a chill run down my spine at the expectant looks on their faces. Some seemed eager, others slightly uncomfortable, but all were focused intently on what was about to happen. Amanda cleared her throat, raising her glass higher. I'd like to make a toast, she announced, to my mother, I forced a smile, bracing myself. To the woman who fed me, raised me, and showed me exactly who I never want to be. Amanda continued, her voice carrying clearly across the now silent restaurant. A failure just like her. The table erupted in laughter. Richard's parents clinked their glasses approvingly. James Collins actually slapped the table in amusement. I stood frozen, the champagne flute nearly slipping from my suddenly numb fingers. The room seemed to spin slightly as Amanda continued, to a woman who spent her life changing bedpans and taking orders from doctors who never advanced beyond the most basic nursing position, who lives in the same shabby house in the same mediocre neighborhood, wearing the same outdated clothes year after year. More laughter. Someone at the far end of the table actually applauded. To the woman who taught me that if I wanted anything in life, I'd have to get it myself because she certainly couldn't provide it. I felt heat rise in my face, not from embarrassment, but from a slow-building anger. Decades of sacrifice reduced to a cruel joke for the amusement of these wealthy strangers. And now, Amanda said, reaching into her designer purse, I have a special Mother's Day gift. She withdrew an envelope and slid it across the table toward me. Go ahead, open it. She urged, her eyes gleaming with malice I had never seen before. With fingers that refused to tremble despite my inner turmoil, I opened the envelope and removed several official-looking papers. Admission forms for Sunny Pines Assisted Living Facility, already filled out with my name. The move-in date was set for the following week. You're always talking about how tired you are, Mom, Amanda said loudly. How that big house is too much work. How you're all alone. I had never said any of those things. So, Richard and I thought it was time you had professional care. Sunny Pines has an excellent reputation. Small rooms, of course, but you're used to that. The table had gone oddly quiet, as if some of the guests were finally recognizing the cruelty of what was happening. But no one spoke up. No one defended me. Of course we'll have to sell your house to pay for it, Amanda continued, but that's for the best. That neighborhood is declining anyway. I looked down at the papers, then around at the expectant faces. They were waiting for my reaction, for tears or protests or submission. In that moment, something shifted inside me. A lifetime of accommodation and sacrifice suddenly felt like enough more than enough. I carefully set down the nursing home papers and picked up my champagne glass once more. I'd like to make a toast of my own, I said, my voice surprisingly steady. Amanda's smile faltered slightly. This wasn't in her script. To the daughter who thinks this is the end of my story, I said, looking her straight in the eyes. Her smile disappeared completely. To the daughter who believes I don't know about the Warrington account. Amanda's face drained of color. To the daughter who thinks her mother is too stupid to understand what embezzlement looks like, even when the evidence was right there in the files I helped her organize when her assistant quit last year. Richard turned to Amanda, confusion turning to anger on his face. What is she talking about? Nothing, Amanda said quickly. Mom's confused. She doesn't know what she's saying. I'm not confused at all. I continued, my voice gaining strength. I know exactly what I saw in those financial statements. $3 million diverted from client accounts into offshore holdings. The documents you asked me to shred, but that I copied first because something didn't seem right. The table had gone deathly silent. Patricia Collins was staring at Amanda with dawning horror. Richard's father had his phone out, presumably checking something. I never said anything because I kept hoping you would make it right, I said softly. I kept hoping my daughter would choose to be honest. She's making this up, Amanda said, desperately looking around the table. She's angry about the nursing home. This is her revenge. Is it? I asked, reaching into my own purse and withdrawing a small flash drive. Because the Warrington estate executor doesn't think so. Neither does the State Bar Association, who received copies of everything last week. This was a bluff. I hadn't sent anything to anyone yet, still protecting my daughter despite everything. But Amanda didn't know that. She lunged for the flash drive, but I closed my hand around it. Too late, I said. Much too late. I carefully placed the nursing home admission papers back in their envelope and handed them to Amanda. I won't be needing these. I'm perfectly capable of living independently, as my doctor confirmed just last month. I turned to address the entire table. I may not have a mansion or a country club membership. I may have spent my life in service to others rather than accumulating wealth. But I have never stolen from those who trusted me. I have never betrayed the people who loved me. And I have never, ever been a failure. With that, I picked up my purse, nodded politely to the stunned faces around the table, and walked out of La Maison with my head held high. Behind me, I could hear the beginnings of chaos erupting. Richard's raised voice, Amanda's frantic denials, the murmurs of the other guests. But I didn't look back. For the first time in decades, I was looking only forward. The drive home from La Maison was a blur. I gripped the steering wheel so tightly my knuckles turned white, and it wasn't until I was halfway home that I realized tears were streaming down my face. Not tears of sadness or humiliation, but of release. Years of suppressed hurt and disappointment finally finding an outlet. By the time I pulled into my driveway, my phone had 17 missed calls from Amanda and a dozen text messages, each more frantic than the last. "Mom, please call me back. This is all a misunderstanding. You've got it all wrong about the accounts. Please don't do anything rash." I silenced the phone and went inside, suddenly exhausted. The emotional toll of the confrontation had drained me completely. I kicked off the new shoes that had pinched my feet all afternoon, hung up the blue dress I had been so proud to wear just hours earlier, and put on my comfortable old robe. Sitting in my favorite chair by the window, I looked around at my shabby home. The house where I had raised Amanda, where every scratched surface and worn carpet held memories. The breakfast nook where I had helped with homework. The living room where we had decorated Christmas trees. The backyard where I had taught her to ride a bike. How had we come to this point? When had my daughter's heart hardened so completely against me? The doorbell rang, startling me from my thoughts. Through the peephole, I saw Richard standing on my porch, his expression thunderous. I briefly considered not answering, but decided I was done hiding. "Helen," he said as soon as I opened the door, "we need to talk." "I think we do," I agreed, stepping aside to let him in. He paced my small living room like a caged animal, running his hands through his hair in agitation. "Is it true?" he finally asked. "About the Warrington account?" I nodded slowly. "I found the documents when I was helping Amanda organize her home office last year. She had boxes of files her assistant left behind when she quit suddenly." "That would be Megan," Richard muttered. "Amanda said she fired her for incompetence." "Megan didn't quit because of incompetence," I said quietly. "She left a note in one of the files. She found the same discrepancies I did and confronted Amanda. Your wife threatened to ruin her career if she reported it." Richard sank onto my sofa, his face ashen. $3 million. At least that much. Maybe more. I'm not a financial expert, but I recognized bank transfers that didn't match the client invoices. "Why didn't you tell me?" he demanded, anger flaring again. "Why keep this secret?" "She's my daughter," I said simply. I kept hoping she would fix it before anyone found out. I kept hoping there was an explanation. Richard laughed bitterly. "There's an explanation, all right. We've been living beyond our means for years. The house, the cars, the vacations, the private schools. I thought it was all covered by our salaries and my investments. I never questioned when Amanda said her bonus was bigger than expected or a new client had paid a large retainer." He looked up at me, his expression a mix of fury and despair. "Do you really have copies of everything? Did you really send them to the Bar Association?" I hesitated. "I have copies," I admitted. "But I haven't sent them to anyone. Yet." "You were bluffing," he realized. "Yes." Richard was silent for a long moment, thinking. "The Warringtons are one of Boston's oldest families," he finally said. "Old money, huge estate. If what you're saying is true, this isn't just embezzlement. This is stealing from people with enormous influence." "I know. And if it comes out, it won't just be Amanda who suffers. Our children will carry this stigma. My business could be affected by association." I hadn't thought that far ahead, but of course he was right. The ripple effects would touch everyone connected to Amanda. What are you going to do? I asked. Richard stood up abruptly. I need to see those documents myself. I need to know exactly what I'm dealing with. I went to my bedroom and retrieved a locked box from the back of my closet. Inside was the flash drive and a folder of photocopies I had made organized chronologically. I handed both to Richard. He spent the next hour at my dining room table going through everything methodically, occasionally making calls that he took in hushed tones on my back porch. His face grew grimmer with each passing minute. Finally, he gathered the papers and stood up. It's worse than I thought, he said. She didn't just take from the Warringtons. There are at least 6 other clients involved. What will you do? I asked again. First, I'm moving the kids to my parents' house tonight. Then I'm calling my attorney. Amanda will need separate representation. He looked at me directly. And I'll be filing for divorce immediately. The finality in his voice shocked me. For all her faults, Amanda was still my daughter. Richard, maybe there's another way, I began. There isn't, he cut me off. This isn't just about the money, Helen. It's the lies, the years of deception. And after what I witnessed today, the way she treated you. He shook his head. That woman is not who I thought I married. As he prepared to leave, he turned back at the door. For what it's worth, I'm sorry about today. That ambush was Amanda's idea, but I went along with it. I should have objected. Yes, you should have. I agreed, not quite ready to absolve him of his part in my humiliation. The nursing home was her idea too, he added. She's been talking for months about how you're declining and need supervision. I never saw any evidence of that, but she was so insistent. I'm perfectly healthy, I said. My doctor can confirm that. I believe you, Richard said. And Helen, whatever happens next with Amanda, don't blame yourself. You didn't fail as a mother. She failed as a daughter. After he left, the calls from Amanda intensified. When I finally answered, her voice was shrill with panic. What did you tell Richard? He came home, packed bags for himself and the kids, and left. He won't answer my calls. I showed him the evidence, I said calmly. The same evidence you created. Mom, you don't understand. I can explain everything. There were temporary transfers for tax purposes. Everything was going to be put back. Then explain it to the State Bar Association, I said. And to the Warrington family executor. And to the police. You wouldn't, she gasped. You wouldn't do that to your own daughter. The same daughter who called me a failure in front of a restaurant full of strangers who tried to force me into a nursing home to get access to my house. That daughter. Amanda began to cry, big gulping sobs. I need your help, Mom. Please, everything's falling apart. For a moment, I wavered. The maternal instinct to protect my child no matter what was powerful. But then I remembered her words at the restaurant, the cruel laughter of her friends, the calculated humiliation she had planned for me. I've helped you your entire life, Amanda, I said quietly. I worked double shifts to put you through private school. I remortgaged my house to pay for college. I sold family heirlooms to cover your law school tuition. I took out loans I could barely afford for your wedding. And how did you repay that sacrifice? By mocking me, by being ashamed of me, by trying to lock me away. I'm sorry, she sobbed. I'm so sorry. I don't know why I did those things. Please, Mom, I need you. No, Amanda. What you need is to face the consequences of your actions. For once in your life. I ended the call and turned off my phone. Then I sat in the growing darkness of my living room, wondering if I had just made the biggest mistake of my life, or finally done what was right. The next morning, my doorbell rang again. This time, it was my sister Grace looking worried. Helen, what on earth is going on? Amanda called me in hysterics last night saying you're threatening to have her arrested, that Richard has left with the children. What happened? I hadn't spoken to Grace in months. She lived 2 states away and had her own busy life. But as I let her in and started explaining, I felt the relief of finally sharing the burden I had been carrying alone. Grace listened without interruption as I told her everything, from Amanda's growing disdain over the years to the Mother's Day ambush and the discovery of the embezzlement. When I finished, she wrapped her arms around me in a fierce hug. You're coming home with me, she declared. Pack a bag. You can't stay here alone while this plays out. I don't need to be rescued, I protested. It's not a rescue, it's reinforcements, Grace corrected. When the world blows up, you stick with family. Real families, not people who treat you like Amanda has. After some persuasion, I agreed. The thought of facing the coming days alone suddenly seemed overwhelming. Within an hour, I had packed essentials for a few weeks and locked up my house. As we drove away, I looked back at the home where I had lived for 40 years. The home Amanda had dismissed as shabby. The home she had planned to sell out from under me. Will I ever come back? I wondered aloud. Of course you will, Grace assured me. This is your home, but right now you need some distance and, frankly, a lot of wine and sister time. I managed a weak smile. That does sound nice. Besides, Grace added, Amanda knows where you live. Do you really want to be here when she gets desperate enough to show up in person? She had a point. The further we got from Boston, the lighter I felt, as if physical distance was helping me break free from decades of emotional manipulation. Over the next few weeks, news trickled in through Richard's occasional calls and updates from mutual friends. The law firm had placed Amanda on immediate leave pending an investigation. The Warrington family had been notified and were considering criminal charges. Richard had filed for divorce and was seeking full custody of the children. Amanda had reportedly moved out of their home and into a hotel. Her credit cards canceled, her access to joint accounts frozen. She had called Grace's house repeatedly, but I wasn't ready to speak with her yet. She made her choices, Grace said one evening as we sat on her porch watching the sunset. Now she has to live with them. I still feel guilty, I admitted. She's still my daughter. And you're still her mother, Grace agreed. But that doesn't mean you have to save her from this. Sometimes the most loving thing a parent can do is let their child face consequences. I knew she was right, but it didn't ease the ache in my heart. Despite everything, I loved Amanda. I always would. But for the first time in my life, I was putting myself first, and that felt both terrifying and strangely liberating. What will you do now? Grace asked, after all this settles down. I hadn't thought that far ahead. For so long, my life had revolved around Amanda, her needs, her wants, her approval. Without that central organizing principle, I felt adrift. I don't know, I said honestly. I really don't know. But as the words left my mouth, I realized they weren't entirely true. I did know one thing for certain. Whatever came next would be my choice, my story to write. And for now, that was enough. 6 months can change everything. I discovered this truth as I settled into my new apartment at Lakeside Senior Community, arranging family photos on the mantle of my gas fireplace. Not photos of Amanda, but older ones, my parents Tom and me on our wedding day, Grace and her family. Images of the people who had truly loved me. I had chosen this place myself, not out of necessity, but preference. After spending a month with Grace, I returned to my house only to find it felt too large, too full of complicated memories. When a real estate agent friend mentioned a new senior community opening nearby, I decided to look. What I found surprised me. Lakeside wasn't a nursing home or even assisted living. It was an active adult community for people 55 and older who wanted to downsize without sacrificing independence or quality of life. The apartments were spacious and modern, with full kitchens and private balconies. The grounds included walking trails, a community garden, a pool, and a small lake. Most importantly, it was filled with people like me. Many of them retired, nurses, teachers, and other service professionals who had spent their lives caring for others and were now learning to care for themselves. You must be Helen, a voice called from my open doorway. A woman about my age with short silver hair and bright eyes stood there holding a potted plant. I'm Margaret, your next-door neighbor. Welcome to Lakeside. This was how it had been since I moved in 2 weeks ago. Friendly neighbors stopping by to introduce themselves, invitations to community events, genuine interest in getting to know me. Thank you, I said, accepting the plant. Would you like some coffee? I just unpacked my machine. Margaret became my first friend at Lakeside, but not my last. Within a month, I had a small circle of women who met regularly for coffee walks around the lake or movie nights in the community center. For the first time in years, I was surrounded by people who valued me for myself, not for what I could do for them. I had sold my house using part of the proceeds to secure my apartment with its modest monthly fee and investing the rest to supplement my small pension. It wasn't wealth by Amanda's standards, but it was security and peace of mind by mine. 3 months after the Mother's Day incident, I received a call from Dr. Patel, my former supervisor at the hospital. Helen, we have a situation, she said without preamble. Our volunteer coordinator just quit and we're drowning in paperwork. Would you consider coming in a few days a week to help organize things until we find a replacement? I had been looking for purpose beyond social activities, and this seemed perfect. 3 mornings a week, I returned to the hospital where I had worked for 4 decades this time, in an administrative capacity that was manageable for my energy level, but still allowed me to contribute meaningfully. Working at the hospital reconnected me with former colleagues, many of whom had no idea about the drama with Amanda. They remembered me as the dedicated nurse who had mentored younger staff and always stayed late when patients needed extra care. Their respect and warm welcome helped restore my self-image, which had been so damaged by Amanda's cruelty. As for Amanda herself, news came through indirect channels. Richard's divorce was proceeding with custody arrangements strongly in his favor. The law firm had terminated Amanda's partnership after their internal investigation confirmed widespread financial misconduct. The Warrington family had agreed not to press criminal charges in exchange for full restitution, which meant Amanda was selling assets and emptying accounts to repay what she had taken. She had attempted to contact me several times through phone calls I didn't answer, and letters I returned unopened. I wasn't ready. The wound was still too raw, the betrayal too profound. Then one day, as I was leaving the hospital after my volunteer shift, I saw her sitting on a bench near the parking lot. She looked diminished somehow, her designer clothes replaced by simple jeans and a sweater, her carefully maintained appearance slightly disheveled. I considered turning around and going back inside, but something made me walk toward her instead. "Mom," she said, standing as I approached, "thank you for not running away." "This is where I work," I replied. "I have no reason to run." She flinched at my tone but nodded. "I've been trying to reach you." "I know." "Can we talk? Please, just for a few minutes?" I hesitated, then gestured to the bench. We sat with careful space between us like strangers sharing public transportation. "I'm sorry," Amanda began. "Those words aren't enough, I know that, but I need to say them anyway. I'm deeply, profoundly sorry for how I treated you." I said nothing, waiting. The things I said at that lunch, I can't even believe they came from my mouth. I don't know who I became, Mom. It's like I lost myself somewhere along the way. You became exactly who you wanted to be, I said quietly. Someone who valued status and money above all else. Someone who saw her mother as an embarrassment rather than a person who sacrificed everything for her. Tears filled Amanda's eyes. "You're right. That's exactly what happened. I got caught up in Richard's world and the pressure to appear perfect and wealthy and sophisticated. I started cutting corners financially to keep up, and then those corners became canyons, and then I was in so deep I couldn't find my way out. And blaming me for your choices was easier than taking responsibility," I added. She nodded miserably. "Yes. Somehow I convinced myself that if you had been more ambitious, more successful, I wouldn't have had to struggle so hard to break into that world. It was easier to be angry at you than to admit I was making terrible choices." We sat in silence for a while, watching hospital staff come and go. Finally, I asked the question that had been haunting me for months. "Did you ever love me at all, Amanda? Or was I always just a stepping stone to the life you wanted?" She looked up, shock clear on her face. "Mom, of course I loved you. I still do. That's what makes this all so horrible. I treated the person who loved me most in the world like she was nothing." "Not nothing," I corrected. "A failure. Those were your exact words." Amanda wiped her eyes. "I know, and they were the biggest lie I've ever told. You were never a failure. You succeeded at the only thing that really matters, being a good person. I'm the one who failed." For the first time, her remorse seemed genuine rather than self-pitying. I felt something hard inside me begin to soften slightly, though nowhere near forgiveness. "What happens now?" I asked. "With the embezzlement, with your life?" "I've been disbarred," she said simply. "It's official as of last week. I can never practice law again. I'm selling my car and jewelry to help pay back what I took. The house is on the market. And the children? Richard has primary custody. I get supervised visits twice a month until the court is satisfied I'm stable." Her voice broke on the last word. They're confused and angry. Madison asked why I don't live with them anymore, and I didn't know what to tell her. "You tell her the truth," I said firmly. "In age-appropriate ways, but always the truth. Children deserve at least that much respect." Amanda nodded. "I'm trying. I'm in therapy now, trying to understand how I became someone who could do these things." "And where are you living?" "I have a small apartment near my new job. I'm working as a legal secretary." The irony isn't lost on me. Despite everything, I felt a pang of sympathy. Amanda had fallen so far so fast, but she had brought it all on herself, and on some level I knew this reckoning had been necessary. "I don't expect your forgiveness," Amanda continued. "I haven't earned it, but I would like a chance to try, to show you that I can change, that I can be a better person, a better daughter." I considered her words carefully before responding. "I don't know if that's possible, Amanda. Trust once broken is very hard to rebuild, but I'm willing to see you occasionally. Small steps, no promises." The relief on her face was palpable. "That's more than I deserve. Thank you." As we parted ways, she tentatively reached out as if to hug me, then stopped herself, offering her hand instead. I took it briefly, feeling the strange formality between us, the daughter and mother now more like uncomfortable acquaintances. "I'll call you," she asked, her voice lifting with hope. "You can call," I said. "I might not always answer, but you can call." Walking to my car, I felt lighter somehow, not healed, not reconciled, but perhaps having taken the first small step on a very long road. That evening at Lakeside, I attended a support group that had formed organically among residents who had experienced family estrangement or elder abuse. Some had children who had stolen their savings. Others had been emotionally manipulated or isolated from friends. A few had stories much like mine of adult children who had turned against them in shocking ways. "Family is supposed to be our safe harbor," said Elaine, an 80-year-old former librarian whose son had forged her signature on loan documents, then disappeared. "When that safety is violated, it's a special kind of betrayal." We nodded in understanding. These were people who knew exactly how I felt, who had walked similar painful paths. Together, we shared coping strategies, resources, and most importantly, the simple comfort of being believed and validated. The group had been my idea, initially suggested to the activities director after I noticed how many residents mentioned difficult family dynamics during social gatherings. It had quickly become one of the most attended regular events at Lakeside, confirming that my experience, while painful, was far from unique. "I've decided to allow limited contact with my daughter again," I shared with the group that night. "She seems genuinely remorseful, but I'm still cautious." "Healthy boundaries are essential," Robert, a retired professor, reminded me. "Reconciliation doesn't mean returning to the same dysfunctional patterns." "And you don't owe her forgiveness on any timeline but your own," added Marjorie, whose daughter had similarly tried to declare her incompetent to gain control of her finances. Their wisdom and support strengthened my resolve to proceed carefully with Amanda to protect my newly rebuilt sense of self-worth, even as I cautiously opened the door to potential healing. As the meeting ended, Margaret approached me with an announcement. "Helen, the hospital called while you were out. They want to offer you the volunteer coordinator position permanently with a small stipend. They say you've reorganized the entire department so effectively that they can't imagine anyone else doing the job." A rush of validation swept through me. The position wasn't prestigious or high-paying, but it was recognition of my skills and contribution. It was respect. It was value. "I'll call them tomorrow," I said, smiling. "I think I'd like that very much." Later that night, as I sat on my balcony watching the moonlight on the lake, I reflected on the journey of the past 6 months. From the depths of humiliation and betrayal to this quiet moment of peace and purpose. I hadn't merely survived Amanda's cruelty. I had found a new way forward, a life that honored my worth rather than diminished it. My phone pinged with a text message from Grace. "Proud of you, sis. You've shown more strength than anyone I know. Love you." I texted back a heart emoji, grateful beyond words for her unwavering support. Then I looked out at the silver rippled water and the stars above, feeling something I hadn't experienced in years: contentment. Not happiness exactly, that would take more time, but a solid, grounded sense that I was exactly where I needed to be, becoming exactly who I was meant to be. The nursing home papers Amanda had slid across that restaurant table 6 months ago now seemed like a sad joke. I wasn't ending my story. I was writing an entirely new chapter on my own terms, and it was turning out to be the most authentic one yet. Looking back now, a year after that fateful Mother's Day lunch, I can see how that moment of public humiliation became the catalyst for the most profound transformation of my life. What Amanda intended as my ending became my beginning instead. The journey hasn't been easy. There were days when grief overwhelmed me, when I questioned everything about my life and my worth as a mother. There were nights when I lay awake replaying every mistake I might have made in raising Amanda, wondering where I had gone so wrong. But gradually, those moments became less frequent, less intense. The support of my sister Grace, my new friends at Lakeside, and my colleagues at the hospital helped me rebuild my sense of self piece by fragile piece. My position as volunteer coordinator has expanded beyond my expectations. What began as organizing paperwork has evolved into developing a comprehensive program that pairs retired healthcare professionals with departments that can benefit from their expertise. The hospital administration recently approved my proposal for a mentorship initiative between these volunteers and nursing students, creating a bridge between generations of caregivers. This program is exactly what we've needed, Dr. Patel told me last week during our quarterly review. You've created something truly valuable here, Helen. You should be proud. Pride is something I'm still learning to embrace. For so many years, I defined my worth through Amanda's achievements and approval. Learning to value my own contributions, to recognize my own strengths without external validation, remains a daily practice. My relationship with Amanda continues to evolve, complicated and fragile. After our initial meeting at the hospital, we began with occasional phone calls, progressing slowly to monthly coffee at a neutral location. She has remained in her position as a legal secretary, living modestly as she continues to make restitution payments. I never appreciated what it meant to live on a tight budget, she admitted during one of our meetings. All those years you made it look so easy, stretching every dollar to give me opportunities. Now I understand what that really cost you. These moments of genuine insight give me hope that the daughter I raised is still in there somewhere beneath the layers of materialism and status seeking that consumed her for so long. But I maintained careful boundaries, protecting the peace and self-respect I've worked so hard to cultivate. Richard and the children have established their own new normal. He remarried recently to a kindergarten teacher with a warm smile and sensible shoes, about as different from the Amanda I last saw at La Maison as possible. The children visit me occasionally at Lakeside, delighted by the ducks on the pond and the cookies I always have ready. Grandma Helen, did you know ducks have waterproof feathers? Madison informed me seriously during their last visit. My science teacher told us. I didn't know that. I replied, though of course I did. That's fascinating. Tell me more. These simple interactions, free from the tension and judgment that had characterized family gatherings in recent years, are precious beyond measure. Perhaps the most unexpected development has been the support group I started at Lakeside. What began as informal gatherings has grown into a structured program with professional facilitators who visit monthly. We've expanded to include residents from neighboring senior communities, creating a network of support for older adults navigating complex family dynamics. Last month, I was invited to speak at a regional conference on elder empowerment, sharing our model as a potential resource for other communities. Standing at that podium, addressing a room full of healthcare providers and senior advocates, I felt a surreal sense of coming full circle. The greatest gift we can give ourselves as we age is permission to prioritize our own well-being. I told the audience. Many of us spent decades putting others first: children, spouses, parents, patients. We need to recognize that self-care isn't selfish. It's essential. The applause that followed was validating, but even more meaningful were the conversations afterward. So many people approached me with their own stories of family estrangement or elder exploitation, grateful to hear these difficult topics addressed openly. You've given a voice to experiences many of us thought we had to bear in silence. One woman told me, her eyes bright with unshed tears. Thank you for that courage. Courage. It's not a quality I would have attributed to myself a year ago. I had always seen myself as practical, dependable, dutiful, but now I recognize that there is indeed courage in setting boundaries and standing up for one's worth and refusing to accept mistreatment, even from those we love most deeply. The healing process continues for both Amanda and me. During our most recent meeting, she shared news of a promotion at her firm and tentative plans to return to school for paralegal certification. "It's not where I thought I'd be at this point in my life," she acknowledged, "but I'm learning to find satisfaction in doing my job well and being honest in rebuilding trust with the people around me." "That sounds like success to me," I told her, meaning it. She looked up, surprise and gratitude flashing across her face. "Coming from you, that means everything." "We are not close, not in the way I once hoped we would be. The Mother's Day betrayal left scars too deep for complete healing, but we are finding a new way to exist in each other's lives with honesty and appropriate expectations. As for me, I continue to flourish in ways I never anticipated. My apartment at Lakeside has become a true home filled with books. I've finally found time to read artwork from local artists I've discovered and photographs of the new friends who have become like family. My calendar is filled with volunteer shifts at the hospital support group meetings, book club gatherings, and walks around the lake with Margaret, who has become my closest confidant. Last week, I received a card from Amanda on my 69th birthday. Inside, beneath the generic printed message she had written, "Mom, I see now what true success looks like. It's not a big house or expensive car or prestigious title. It's the lives you touch, the integrity you maintain, and the strength you show in adversity. By that measure, you are the most successful person I know. I'm still learning from you. Love, Amanda." I placed the card on my mantle next to the photos of my parents and Tom. Not because all is forgiven or forgotten, but because it represents something important: the possibility of growth, of change, of seeing beyond our narrow definitions of worth and achievement. Sometimes the most powerful response to cruelty isn't retaliation or even forgiveness, but simply moving forward on your own path with dignity and self-respect. The deadly stare I gave Amanda across that restaurant table wasn't just an expression of anger, it was a declaration of independence, a statement that her judgment of me did not define my value. The truth is, we are all works in progress, stories still being written. No one else gets to declare our endings or define our worth. Those are ours alone to determine. So if you're watching this and feeling diminished by someone else's cruel words or actions, especially from family who should protect rather than harm you, please know this: you have the right to stand up for yourself. You have the right to walk away from toxicity, even when it comes from people you love. You have the right to begin again, to find communities that value you, to create a life that honors your true worth. I'd love to hear your stories of resilience and renewal in the comments below. Have you ever had to stand up to family who tried to diminish you? How did you rebuild your sense of self afterward? Please share your experiences and support others who might be going through similar struggles. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe if you found value in my story. Together, we can create a community where aging is accompanied by dignity, respect, and the freedom to write our own endings. Thank you for listening to my journey. Remember, it's never too late to stand in your power and redefine what success truly means.